So Zhewich is Misha Naomi. Hello, my name is Naomi, and today I'm coming to you from Dream Waters Wellness and some fireside reminiscings, as one does. And I was just reflecting on the beautiful, just kind of different layers that come with a really good counseling session, and really being witnessed and really having that space to just get into the crevices of the mud and safely, unbiasedly, just like allow something to exist and then to be witnessed. And then what is even so much more powerful in that witness aspect is the verbalization, the vocalization of this affirmation of the witness. So a summary of the self. So pondering, I was like, where do we begin? Does it start with the clay and with Anubis and with Egypt? Is it about the blanket? Does it stay on the blanket? Is it with the blanket? Is it with Quoddy and in the Quoddy tales? So I remember one beautiful teaching that came from Primary Colors in the Kwanghan territory at the Songhees Wellness Center space in 2016, 15 area of time. There was a wonderful beaver woman, Louise something, who shared the awareness that stories have their own life and that the story arrives for what needs to be in the time. So my mother started to make a quilt when I was 16, before I was 16 years old. The person that she had seen growing and developing and coming into their fullness, she began to cut and sew and place and put together a quilt. I'm 41 years of age. That quilt has now come to rest on my bed and to hold me warm. And just yesterday, I was touching this velvet and the articulate and remembering all the beautiful aspects of the bloodline and the maternal aspects of my grandmother, Florence Doreen Smith, and the importance of quilts in my family. And so when I was a child, all of us had quilts made with cartoons hand painted on them by my grandma and my mother and my aunt, and cut and sewed and put together, and we all had individual quilts. Flannel is very important to my family, and the underside of the blanket is in red flannel. So it was this really interesting moment of realizing how red, like my underbelly is, and that warmth of that flannel and this red underside to a checkerboard of a blanket that's got a couple of blues, greens, black, and red. And it's this pattern of checkerboard in many colors with a strong black velvet border, very strongly protected and perfectly just the size just for me. And it was a moment of realizing that this is the envisionment and that, like the vision, the embodiment of the way that the person that called my being into existence and nursed me to stay here seen me as. That's how I am seen. And it was just very moving in a rather intense way to look at myself and kind of be a little startled, but then also like these things that are so close to us that just are us that we don't necessarily even realize that we are. And so like the red underbelly, it's like a red belly black snake. And so before I left for Australia, I was attending art school at the Victoria College of Art from 2012 to 2015 area of time. And 2011 area. Any which way. I have a certification in fine arts. I have a certification in illustration. I have a certification in classical animation. I have a post-diploma in visual arts. And I studied for multiple years at this beautiful art school. And this one beautiful, joyous moment, I went to go use the washroom, and the paint smattered floor had all these little all over it. And from the floor, I seen this little orange kind of coyote, kind of wolf, kind of guy with like a blue white beard and a stick, just like run. And he was so clear, and he was so pronounced, and he just arrived, and he was just there in the floor, and I could not see this hilarious little running orange guy with white beard and kind of humanoid dog wolf guy running along. Then next I came to a comic book class, and it ended up being a comic about a woman with a blue crow who was walking along, and she sees a like a vessel, a vase, and she lifts it up and she's compelled to drink it. So she drinks it, and then she begins to transform and drops down, and it's shifting and transforming. And then when she lifts her head up, she's like, oh, what just happened? But her head is that of the lioness. So very much feeling Sekhmet's energy around that time, and an arrival of the pride and this lioness head. The lioness goes back to my first memory of a past life and first emotional reaction and knowing of a memory of a particular aspect of being a lioness. And so there is this intrinsic connection that I have to this lions in general. The first comic was born, and at the end it's a little crow looking at this woman whose head is now a lioness. And in the script it said, little did she know her journey had just begun. Then the next comic that came out, this little orange wolf dog guy with a little white beard hanging down, and he's running along with his stick, and he's climbing over things, and he's stepping in things, and it's sticky, and then pulls his foot up, and there's like a sticky webbing on his foot, and all of a sudden out bursts a big old spider, and it's like, bah, who dares disturb me? And the little guy's like, he's like, I've come for the knowledge of my ancestors. Yes. And then the spider points, says, follow the dragonflies when they fly in tandem. And shows the dragonfly in the corner of the page. Then the next comic that started to come about, there was a little weasel guy with a bag, and then there was this bubbling in a pond. This bubbling, and then up coming this donkey-headed woman from the swamp. And so I could feel their edges. And just before I left for Australia, all of a sudden this quotey tale started to download. And it's this little quotey guy, and he's trying to find grandmother's spider, and he woke up and he doesn't know what's going on, and grandmother spider and quotey came into the picture. And I scribbled it down in a notebook, and then I shuffled it away, and I headed over to Australia for what I thought would be 5 months of travel time, and turned into 4 years. So when I headed over into Australia, then when I landed in Brisbane and opened my first branch and hive process of initiatory magical practices, it was called the Animus Journey. And it was at the same time as I was deepening into ancestral teachings coming out of Daniel Foor's schooling, and different teachings from Jackie Harvey with teachings in Romy Romy and teachings from Aotearoa from New Zealand, and also indigenous to Australia holographic kinetics. And so it was at this time that I was being introduced to these different modalities, as well as dream alignment came in there as well. So as those were integrating, I opened my first initiation and took my apprentice, who was in the previous podcast, Sharna Nguyen McLeod, through the year and a day process. And during that time, because we had such incredible chemistry on the ways to work with the psyche, to work with the somatic body, and to work with the physicality of psychology and through art therapy and somatic process, we birthed a process called Animist Journey. During the Animist Journey, we're handling a container. It is art therapy practices, it's movement practices, and it's to exhibition of empowerment and performing your Animist Journey of all of these different processes and these different ways of visiting and moving different aspects within the recesses of self. So as that was happening, Ben came back in the Quoddy tale, and Sharna brought in Propagander and had drawn this hilarious Propagander and introduced me to Propagander and all the aspects of things that I was aware of but not quite aware of around the Propagander's spiels. So I sat down and I really started to work on the Quoddy tale at that point. And I just brought in different aspects of the Quoddy tale. And for the most part, I thought it was there. So I illustrated it to a certain extent. I colored it and I put it all down into words. And got at least a physical hard copy beginning. As time went on and the years passed, then different aspects expanded on and extended into the Quoddy tale, so then those were also illustrated and written. In 2022 or 2023, maybe 2023, I went to Russell Island for 2 days, once or twice, and sat down and just glued myself in the chair and borrowed a buddy's computer and Photoshop and scanner and put all my images together and put together the Quoddy tale and then sent it out for review, which came back, your grammar is terrible, but really cool, not so children's tale. And the Quoddy tale took its first jump out into the world. So did Quoddy come from the paint in the floor? Was that a spirit speaking to me? Did I bump into them? Or were they innate with me and they've been assigned to me at birth to be with me and assist me? I just found it really interesting how Quoddy arrived. When the Quoddy tale was finishing, there was this little wrap up that came to as which section went where, which went here, which went there, and this conclusion of the truth of my personal journey came about. The Quoddy tale finishes with patchwork quilt, and Quoddy proudly honoring all the creeks that make up Quoddy's River. A beautiful blend. And having this wonderful, interesting patchwork quilt. And here I am, 41 years old. My mother's like, I made you this thing for your 16th birthday, but then you weren't around. So, it didn't get finished till now. But here it is. And here I am holding up, just like this illustration, this interesting and beautiful patchwork quilt. Such a incredible process I find existing, and the way that spirit just engages with us, and the way that it arrives, and it arrives through the art, it arrives through just these subtle ways, and then lands in this knowing of this beautiful tale. So, thinking about stories, thinking about blankets, thinking about what is aspects of Dreamwaters Wellness. Oral tradition. storytelling is a big aspect of Dreamwater's wellness.